Okay, so Chris, if you'd like, maybe if we can start with the session, we're gonna and share it with our attendees as well.
Of course.
Uh, yep. So yep. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. Thank you all for attending. Mm, Guys, just I just wanted like just introduce Chris. Chris, he is the head of accessibility and digital inclusion at Google. He leads the Google's efforts and the Google efforts around accessibility of products, people, policy, and partnerships across the region, with the focus on emerging markets. He has more than 25 years of experience. Chris is like a legend in the field of digital accessibility. I'm personally a big fan. I'm personally a big fan. So thank you so much, Chris, for agreeing to give the talk today. Really looking forward to learn from you and get insights on AI and accessibility.
Yeah, thank you for building me up so high. I think I'm going to disappoint everyone from now on. So, Mihan, my name is, as you heard, my name is Christopher. I lead accessibility and disability innovation now. We're trying to expand the definition of language, and you can't be innovative if you aren't inclusive. So we're looking to the future. I just want to share some thoughts of these. These are my thoughts after having spent a couple of years, at least 10 now, working exclusively in accessibility, and it's been the best job I've ever had. It's something that makes me happy to wake up in the morning knowing that the work that I do benefits someone who's never going to know who I am. Every email, every meeting, every conversation I have is all about serving someone else, and that's joy, and that makes work really easy. So just to tell you how I got here, I'm not the typical Googler, I'm not the typical nerd, I'm not the typical accessibility person. I'm actually a failed Western opera singer. I studied classical music in university, but realized when I turned 25 that I was making more money waiting on tables than I was singing, and thought it probably meant something. But because I was born in the Bay Area in California near San Francisco, I got involved in tech. So within a year of joining tech, I joined Apple. And I was at Apple for 10 years. I worked on the first iPod, on the first iTunes, the towers in Final Cut Studio. I then worked at Sony Ericsson and made phones for a couple of years, and even made video games at Disney Mobile. And 13 years ago, I joined Google. But none of this was accessibility. I discovered accessibility here at Google because my product wasn't accessible. I was the lead technical program manager for Google Play Music, what's now YouTube Music. And we had a test engineer come into our meeting. She had an iPhone, and she turned on, yes, we support iPhone, and she turned on VoiceOver and launched our app, and I heard button, 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 button as she was swiping on her screen. I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, this is Google Play Music for someone who's blind." I said, "Well, that's stupid. How do they use it?" She said, "They don't. That's why I'm here." And as a musician, I was horrified. What do you mean they can't have access to the music? We got to do something. So I fell down the rabbit hole, and I couldn't look away. So within a couple months, I volunteered to take on accessibility for all of Google Play. And then a couple years later, I took on for all of Google from a programmer's perspective. And about 5 years ago, I realized that I spent my entire life living in the Bay Area, and there was an opportunity for Google outside of the US, specifically around the European Accessibility Act. So I pitched my job. I went to my boss and said, "Send me to Europe and I'll get us ready for the European Accessibility Act." And she said yes, her boss said yes, her boss said yes, and we moved here in 2021. And it's a pleasure to be here. I've been lucky enough to travel the world and talk about accessibility, talking about building for everyone, making technology that makes people's lives better. So enough about me. Why does Google care about accessibility? Well, I'm lucky to be able to say it's part of our mission statement to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So with that behind me, it's still a lot of work. It's still difficult to make everybody care all the time, but we have the intention, we have the expectation. So as a corporate culture, we're moving in the right direction. And what's cool about a place as big as Google, it's everything that we get to talk about. It's not just digital. It's digital for sure, but it's also like Google Maps, Google Maps can tell you if a restaurant has step-free access, or if there's an accessible toilet, or if you're in a chair, we can tell you how to get from point A to point Z and how to do it without having to run into steps. So we have information on the real world about real world accessibility, and we've taken the initiative to try to share it. So I'm really proud about the intention that we have. And I'm talking a lot about intention because there's no such thing as perfect. Things are going to screw up, whether it's your fault or not. So what you really need to understand is let it be okay to make a mistake as long as you learn from it. And because the work that we're doing, disability affects everyone. According to the WHO, there's 1.3 billion people who are self-identified with a disability. And the kind of tools that we have, say for someone who's deaf or someone who's blind, is dramatically life-changing. But there are a lot of people, for whatever reason, who don't identify with it, whether it's stigma, whether it's fear, or just simply didn't even know that it's a disability. And that was me. I'm dyslexic, but I didn't realize until my mid-40s that the tools that help dyslexics also help me. So there's a bunch of people that are not identified with disability, but can be helped. And then there's the friends and families of people with disabilities, because brands awareness matters. If you made the effort to make a product accessible, and if that matters to someone in your family, you're probably going to continue to work with that brand. Or think about that situation with a wheelchair. If you have someone in your family who has a chair, you're not going to go to a restaurant where you have steps or a non-accessible toilet. So that the friends and family aspect of it is impactful too. But in reality, all 8 billion of us, we're all going to have some kind of disability, whether it's a temporary one, like you go to an optometrist and have your eyes dilated, or you have a baby in your arm, so you're frankly one-handed because you can't really do both things on your phone or get your keys, or you have a broken leg, or you're lucky enough to get old. And the older you get, the more impairments you acquire, because that's just how the body works. So how does Google do this? And I want to share with you sort of 4 key points that are consistent with everything that we do that goes well. One is leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. And because this is Google, because this is 2025, we'll be talking about AI. 2, nothing about us without us. And this is one of the most important things, because you can't build for someone, you need to build with someone. Because only someone who's blind, for example, can tell you what it's really like to use your app or your service. And then they can help you understand how to solve those problems. So that partnership with people with disabilities is critically important. And if 1.3 billion people sounds like a lot of people, well, it is. And if you don't want to get started on everything, we'll start with one. Start with one category of disability, or start with fixing one person's problem, build one feature, fix one bug. Because once you get started, you start understanding the tools, the stack, and the relationship and the insights of the community, and the relationships of design and value. Start with one thing and then move on. Because there's no such thing as perfection, as I just mentioned. So what you're actually learning to do is build a process. The goal is progress, not perfection. Because again, things can break around you, or people's expectations change, or frankly, you might have a bug, or you talk to someone that you didn't talk to before and you learn something new. How you react to these situations when something falls short of your customer's expectation matters. So how you react to that matters. So how you make your product better matters. Again, this is a process that you're going through. So what I want to do is share with you how we've done this. An accessible iterative innovation from Google, specifically around captions or hearing, but almost all about captions, because that's where the technology has been. So as an example, in 2009, 14 years ago, 16 years ago, math is not my best subject, I'm a musician. 16 years ago, YouTube added English automatic captions, which meant you upload a video and we create captions for you. Frankly, they weren't very good. But we learned that lesson, that something that's not perfect, but there, is something that is much, much better than having nothing because it's not perfect. Because again, there's no such thing as perfect. So we kept it. We kept investing. We kept developing, and now we have 41 languages where we provide free captions for anyone. And then we can even do live streaming captions in English. But what's really neat is 10 years later, we realized this technology that works well in YouTube also could be part of Google Meet. So in 2019, we were one of the first companies to add free captions in English to Google Meet. And then now here we are 6 years later, we have over 88 different languages, either generally available or what we call in beta, lake quality, where we have real-time captions, including many Arabic variants. So, and also African variants and Indian variants. So we're not just taking languages, but we're also trying to understand dialects. And that gets really exciting. So now we have 88 languages where you can see what the person is saying. So if you're deaf or if you're distracted, you can keep up with what's going on. But what's really cool is the phone you have in your hand is really powerful. And if you have the right application, it can change the way you interact with your world. So I still haven't fixed this slide. Live transcribe and notifications actually has a 120 different languages where we provide real-time captions for anyone for free. And when the AI gets it wrong, you can correct it with a keyboard, or if you're nonverbal or you can't be understood, you can pop up a keyboard and ask your question. So now you have a way to have a bi-directional conversation with someone with your phone. So if you can't hear, say you go to the doctor and there isn't an interpreter, you can pull out your phone and actually go through the conversation with your doctor. We can create transcriptions for up to 3 days, but they're off by default because of security purposes. But something we learned working with this community is the world around you is hard to understand if you can't hear. Situational awareness is lost if you can't hear. So if you tell us what your name is, we can tell you when someone calls your name. Or if we can tell you what happens in the world around you, like a baby is crying or a car alarm or people laughing or a crowd, we can even tell you when dinner's done, because you can train the AI in this app to the sounds of your kitchen timer or your washing machine timer. So we can tell you what happens around your home. And that's good, because what we learned from the community is often people who are deaf burn their dinner more often than hearing people because they can't hear the timer. So this allows the technologies to sort of supplement what they can do and let them make a decision and exist in the world that wasn't designed with us in mind. And it was created by these two people. It's Dimitri on the left and Chet on the right. And I'm going to let them tell this part of the story.
Chris, I think you wanted to share something on the screen.
I'm sorry?
I think you wanted to share something on screen.
Oh, I see. Let me restart. And is that better? What's wrong?
I can't see anything on the screen.
You can't see the video have you seen any of the slides that I've been showing?
Okay. Oh, okay, so you had slides?
Yes, I've been oh my gosh, yes, I've been sharing slides this whole time.
Okay, so we've been all focusing with you.
Oh my god, you had to look at my face? I'm so sorry. Let me turn on the slides. It's much better this way. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'll go. There's nothing on the slides that I haven't said to you, but this is the first thing where you really need to see. I'm so sorry. Gosh. There we go. Isn't that better?
Yep. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry, folks. All right, let's start this again. And I'm sorry that you had to look at me this whole time.
I'm set.
Yeah.
Ready? completely lost hearing when I was 1 year old. Technology provides tremendous opportunities to help people with disabilities. I'm a research scientist at Google, and I'm developing speech recognition in technology. Speech recognition accuracy finally became so good that I could fulfill my dream for whole life, to use speech recognition to communicate with people. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm doing good. What can I get you today?
I would like tea. Like Transcribe is an application that runs in Android. It provides transcription of speech for deaf and hard of hearing in real time.
Dimitri worked with the speech team to develop that technology, and Google has made strides in this in the past couple years, but the app itself is what I've been working on. I'm not an Android engineer. I saw an opportunity for something useful and dug into that and kind of evolved naturally.
Did I already mention?
So that's an example of these points, all one after the other. Do what you're good at. Nothing about us without us. Start with one. It's a brilliant application. And one of the neat things about it, and see there are slides here, is that it works both online and offline for many languages. And there's a sacrifice or something you need to think about when you're designing your application. If you have an offline model that you're working with, it will be more robust. It'll probably provide better transcriptions, but the latency is worse. If you had an on-device model, the latency is much better, but it won't be quite as accurate. It won't be quite as robust. So this is something you need to think about when designing your services and your applications. Which kind of model do I want to be able to work with, and where do I have the best APIs? So when we started doing these on-device models, we realized there's a lot more that we could do with it. So we took our on-device model and actually built it into the operating system. So we took it out of the app and put it into the OS. And now we added this feature called live captions into Android about 6 years ago. It's been quite some time. And this provides real-time captions in many languages for social media or voice notes or videos that you will send to a friend or a friend will send to you. And this is a situation where you'll never get a captioned video, but if we can provide the captions for you, you are able to be engaged in the world that you are in. Your friends can send you a video, not feel bad that you can't see it, you can't hear it. So we're trying to make it possible to engage in the world. And in English, it's in English now, rolling out to other languages, we have what we call expressive captions, where not only is it the text, but think of the situation of football or American soccer football, where you have an Italian running and scoring the goal, and you hear the announcer say goal, and you'll have like the goal, all the O's, and the O will like animate, showing you some excitement. So now we're trying to use the AI to provide emotional context. When we can recognize it, we'll tell you what song is being played in a video scene. So we're trying to provide more contextual information through captions. Really quite exciting. And then we realized, well, if we can do it with a video, why not a phone call? What could that do?
I hesitated for a few seconds, and I realized the enormity of it, what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time, I was able to call my son.
This is Matthew. He likes to swim in cold water.
After a swim, you feel alive.
Like really, really cold water.
I also swam across the English Channel.
But that's another story. Matthew is deaf.
People think if I got a hearing aid on, I could hear everything, and that's not true. I lip read most of the time. I have 2 boys, and they're both very important parts of my life.
This is Matthew's youngest son.
Hi, I'm Harry.
He lives in Hong Kong and plays rugby.
I always want to keep in touch with him. Before, I need to communicate with him through Zoom or WhatsApp. I would try and lip read him, but it's really hard because it's not 3D, it's a flat screen. When I got the Google picture phone, I could live capture Peter. Harry was the first person I phoned. It was incredible. And we were talking for about half an hour. All of a sudden, he said,
Dad, do you realise this is the first time we've talked on the phone?
I was speechless for 3-4 seconds, and it realised what it really meant. I'm 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was able to call my son.
So now we're using technology to bring families together. And why shouldn't Matthew be able to use a phone just like anybody else? The technology empowers it. So this is why we continue, because we learn these new opportunities and these new needs. So one thing you should know, you probably noticed about Matthew, is that he's verbal, and not all deaf people are verbal. Also, not all people who can hear can be understood. Think of someone who has ALS or MND, a neurological disease that will eventually steal your ability to speak. But before that, people have a hard time understanding you. And if you want to use the phone, why not? So we extended live captions and created what we call live captions for calls. So now you can pop up a keyboard and type the message of what you want to say, click send, and we'll use text-to-speech and generate a voice for you. So now you can be deaf and nonverbal and still be able to call up and order a pizza, or use the phone if someone calls you for a medical appointment or things like that. So you can use the phone just like anybody else. And then the technology itself continues to evolve. Here's a pair of, this is probably 3 years old, 4 years old, this picture. It's of a prototype of AR glasses, and AR is huge now. But this is a prototype we had several years ago of glasses where you could actually see the text in the glass. And in here was a woman who speaks Chinese seeing English. Or you could be, she could be seeing Chinese, because you could use Google Translate to create subtitles and translations, or you could just simply have it be a captions of the conversation you're having now. But taking things one step farther, because this has not been possible until literally now, at least from us, and we try to take this very, very seriously about the quality. 3 days ago, we announced a Gemma gem called Sign Gemma, with which in ASL we can provide real-time sign to text interpretation. Now it's not bidirectional. We're not doing anything with avatars, but this is a huge step in the direction of taking sign language and turning it into text. So you could speak to someone who signs, and if they can read your lips, you can talk with them. Or worst case, you just pull out a piece of paper and start writing. But the technology is going, so I expect to see this grow and grow and grow. And this is something I've been waiting for quite some time. So I'm really excited for this. So bringing it back, just to recap, when you're building for everyone, these are the things I want you to think about. 1, leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. And for us these days at Google, it's AI. 2, nothing about us without us. Never build for someone. Build with and for someone. And if 1.3 billion people is scary, we'll start with 1. Start with one person's need, like Dimitri, or start with one feature, or start with one bug. Just get started, because what you're building is a program. You want to make progress. Don't focus on perfection. But really, the most important thing is that you just get started, because if you don't, none of this is going to happen. You're not going to learn. You're not going to have the insights. You're not going to make a product that everybody can use. And why not make a product that everyone can use, right? So when you do go down this part, you can make magic.
A look can say a lot. A look can be honest and true. A look can speak for you. Say what's on your mind or in your heart. A look can say what's best unsaid.
find the right words without having to say a word. A look.
It's great to see you.
Can say a lot.
How are you?
That's why we do what we do. We want to make technology that's built to help. Thank you. So I apologize for giving you half of the presentation without any slides. I promise you there are slides there. But I read off everything that was there, so you didn't have any. You didn't get any less information. You were just unfortunately having to look at me. So,
thank you so much, Chris, for this great presentation. It's amazing, to be honest. Especially when we're talking about AI and integrating it into the field of accessibility. So now, guys, if you have questions, please, if you can drop them in the chat.
there's already one here.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is address this one, and this is a fair question. I wouldn't say when it comes to the work in accessibility, our leaders recognize that this is about building products for everyone. This is about making products that we can't sell if we don't make it accessible. So the work that we do in terms of making our products for everyone is really everyone. So we have to build for accessibility to sell them to Europe and other countries in the world. So fortunately, we don't have we're not impacted by this conversation from the current administration in the US. The executive order does not impact the work that we're doing in accessibility. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question myself. Is there plans for Google to integrate AI in Google Docs and in document formatting?
The workspace team is actively trying to find out the best ways of integrating AI. I promise you, this is it's a high priority for them.
Yeah. Anyone else has any questions, guys? Please, you could feel free to drop them in the chat.
How does one advocate for accessibility as a developer? One thing I think people forget is that an accessible design is a good design, because if someone can't use it, it's not well designed. And if you want to provide real value for your applications, you not only want to make sure it's technically accessible, you also want to make sure it's usable. And then through that, you can actually create value with what it is that you're building. So when it comes to the idea of building for accessibility, you want to make sure it gets designed in at the beginning. So if you have a document, a BRD, a PRD, however your requirements come to you, if you don't see anyone talking about accessibility, ask, because if they've never thought about it, they're never going to add it. If you ask the question, now they have a chance to think about it. How do we want to show up? How do we want to make our application work? So it's not that hard, and the tools that you know about, whether it's the fixes, all the things in Xcode, like the one button fixes, or running an application using Accessibility Scanner, or using Xcode in the web. There's a bunch of tools that make it easier for you to get these low-hanging fruits of accessibility. And if nothing else, just do it yourself. If you need some help with a designer, most designers actually care. I've never seen a designer who doesn't care. I've seen designers who felt like they weren't empowered. But if you as a developer ask a designer, say, hey, your design is missing these things around accessibility, can you get them to me? Now you have a chance to have the conversation, and maybe you could sneak it in, or maybe you can go to the product owner and talk to the product owner and see with them, how you want to make this work. So present it as an opportunity, and see what happens. Because I think people naturally want to do the right thing, but if you don't know what questions to ask, you can't be there. And if people are so focused on what's called the minimum viable product, or MVP, it's very difficult to build out because you always have that ROI discussion. The way I try to think about this is something I was inspired by Rama Giraro, who used to be at the Helen Hamlin Center. He taught me that if you design for the edges, you get the center for free. Well, I mean, to go over this. So if you design for the edges, all the tech bros and all those people who are fully abled and normal can use your app. But after a real rough night and they're hungover, they can still use the app. And after they got married and had kids and are super, super tired because the baby is screaming, they can still use the app. Because the application was designed to meet people's needs with distraction, fatigue, tired, bleary eyes, contrast. You design a thoughtful application, it'll meet you where you are. So if you design for the edges, you get the center for free. Next question is, do people with disabilities apply for opportunities at Google over a different link or the same as others? We actually have, in our most recent, or maybe it was last year's, disability annual report, we have about 6.5% of Googlers have self-ID'd to having a disability. And what's interesting about that is, in some countries, we're not allowed to ask. And in other countries, and in some situations like with autism, they don't see themselves as disabled. So I really think the 6.5% is low. I can't say by how much. So we have a good track record of employing people with disabilities and having them thrive. There is no special process to apply as a person with a disability. You just go into the main process and you would just let us know about any kind of accommodations that you would need. So you don't have to do anything special. We will ask you ahead of time what you need to be able to be successful in these interviews. What's one small change you'd recommend to every web or mobile developer to make today to drastically improve their app's accessibility? I would recommend run Google Web App. Okay, I would recommend running the free tools and just make it a day's worth of work to fix these things. So it's Lighthouse or Axe Core on the web, or the Accessibility Scanner on Android. iOS, we actually have some code that goes into Xcode, so you can test in Xcode as well. And just find these low-hanging fruits and start there. Because when we identify opportunities to make things better, we will also show you what the documentation is. We will show you a recommendation. So hit targets, it's alt text, it's labels. Those things make a huge difference between going from like 0 to 50 or 0 to 40. The rest of the 60% is important to work, but the biggest impact is that 0 to 40. So run Accessibility Scanner or run Lighthouse, fix those accessibility issues, and you'll have a much better application. Did Google plan in upcoming months to make eyewear totally AI, like Meta AI? I recommend you take a look at the Google I/O, specifically the developer one, because there's a lot of conversation around different form factors, around Android XR, which is our platform, and there's an awful lot of AI in there, and I'm really excited. Anything else? Well, let me then end with one thought. The fact that you're here now listening to me blabber on about accessibility actually means a lot. You recognize that this is an opportunity for your skills, the opportunity for your products, an opportunity for your people, maybe someone in your family. The work that we do here in accessibility is really about making the world more equal. Because someone who has a disability, depending upon the disability, they live in a world that was not designed with us in mind. And this is called the social model versus the medical model. The medical model of disability, thank you, GDC. The medical model believes that someone with a disability is broken and that they need to be fixed. You get a prescription for a magnifier or whatever, and you are fixed. The social model is slightly different. It believes that we have impairments, but we're not disabled until we run into something, whether it's technology or the built environment or culture that creates the disability. So two people who are deaf, they have a superpower. They can talk through walls. They can talk through glass. And that's totally cool. And it's amazing. And soon we'll be able to sign through glass and have Android phones recognize it. But the moment you hit a video that has their captions or sign language, now they're disabled. Someone who's blind is great as long as your website is accessible. Or you send them that PDF that wasn't made accessible. They were cool until they were given that piece of content that wasn't accessible. So it's not the person. It's the content, it's the cultures that's causing the disability. And what you get to do here is help break some of those barriers down. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trying. And please keep up with this, because I mean, I've been in tech for 30 years and this is the best job I've ever had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and all of it was a great presentation, to be honest. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. It's my pleasure. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Connect to me on LinkedIn. We can message there, or my email address is patnoe@google.com. But please don't ask for a job. I can't get you a job. But I'm happy to answer any kind of questions around this kind of work. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.